Commander Lisa Wright floated through the corridor of the International Space Station Freedom, her heart beating fast. Today was the day. After weeks of strange signals and careful messages, the aliens had finally agreed to a face-to-face meeting. You ready, Commander? John Taylor asked, adjusting the communication equipment one last time. Lisa nodded. As ready as I'll ever be for first contact with an alien species. The space station crew gathered in the main observation deck. Science Officer Diane Patel checked her instruments while Engineer Kevin Martinez made sure all systems were working perfectly. They had trained for many things during their time in space, but not for this. A soft hum filled the air. Outside the large window, space itself seemed to bend and twist. Then it appeared, a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It had no visible engines or windows, just smooth, dark metal that somehow flowed like water. "They're requesting permission to dock," John said, his voice shaking slightly. Lisa took a deep breath. "Tell them permission granted." 30 minutes. Later, Lisa stood face to face with the first aliens to ever meet humans. They called themselves the Varens. They were tall and thin with grayish skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their eyes were large and completely black, showing no emotion that humans could recognize. "We thank you for this meeting," the lead Varen said. Its mouth didn't move. The words simply appeared in Lisa's mind. "We have studied many species across the stars, but yours is unusual." The meeting went on for hours. The Varens explained they were part of a group of advanced civilizations. They had technology that seemed like magic to the humans. They could travel between stars in days, cure almost any disease, and even change the weather on planets. "We wish to learn more about humans," the Varen said. "Particularly your young ones." Lisa felt something cold run down her spine. "Our children, why? Your species devotes unusual resources to offspring. It is not efficient by our understanding." Over the next few days, the Varens shared knowledge and asked many questions. They seemed most interested in how humans raised children and the lengths parents would go to protect them. "Your people risk their lives for their young," one Varen noted while reviewing Earth's history, sometimes even for young that are not their own. "This behavior exists in no other intelligent species we have encountered." Lisa didn't like how they talked about human children, like they were studying ants under a microscope. But Earth's governments were excited about the alien technology. They quickly agreed to cultural exchange programs, ignoring Lisa's concerns. 1 week after first contact, Lisa sat in her private quarters, video calling her husband Sam back on Earth. "Something doesn't feel right about this," she told him, keeping her voice low. "The way they talk about our kids." Sam's face looked worried on the screen. "What do you mean?" "They keep asking about how we protect our children, why we spend so much time raising them. They said it's evolutionarily inefficient. When I asked about their own children, they changed the subject. Maybe they just have different family structures," Sam suggested. Lisa shook her head. "It's more than that. They talk about our kids like they're studying ants, not people. And yesterday they requested permission to observe schools and families as part of their research. And our government said yes, didn't they?" "Of course they did. The Varens are offering technology that could solve climate change, end energy problems, cure diseases. Nobody wants to seem unfriendly." As Lisa spoke, a shadow moved in the corridor outside her room. She didn't notice it. "I'm going to dig deeper," she said. "Find out what they really want with our children." "Be careful," Sam said. "I love you." "Love you too." After the call ended, Lisa stared out her window at the strange alien ship connected to the station. Something about this first contact felt wrong, and she was determined to find out what the Varens were really after. 6 months had passed since the Varens arrived. Life in the small town of Pinewood, Oregon continued mostly as normal, despite the occasional news about alien visitors in major cities. Ben Bell finished his shift at the fire station and drove home under a sky full of stars. After 12 hours of work, he wanted nothing more than to kiss his daughter Amy goodnight. His wife Melissa greeted him at the door. She still wore her paramedic uniform. "Rough day?" Ben asked, noticing the tired look in her eyes. "Car crash on Highway 16, she said. Everyone made it, though. Amy still up? Melissa smiled. She insisted on waiting for you. Third grade science. Project tomorrow. Something about space. Ben found 8-year-old Amy in her bedroom surrounded by papers and colored markers. Her walls were covered with pictures of stars and planets, with new drawings of what she thought the Varens might look like. Daddy! Amy jumped up. I made a solar system, and Ms. Porter says maybe the Varens will visit our school someday. Ben helped Amy finish her project, then tucked her into bed. Sweet dreams, kiddo, he whispered, turning on her small night light. Later that night, around 2 a.m., a sound woke Ben. He sat up in bed, listening. The house was quiet. What is it? Melissa mumbled. Nothing, Ben said. Going to check on Amy. He walked down the hallway to Amy's room. The door was open. Strange, he always closed it. Ben looked inside. The nightlight cast a dim glow across empty sheets. Amy's bed was empty. Amy? Ben called softly, thinking she might have gone to the bathroom. No answer. He checked under the bed, in the closet, then the bathroom. Panic rose in his chest as he turned on lights and searched each room. Melissa joined the search, calling their daughter's name with increasing fear. Amy was gone. Sheriff. Kate Lewis arrived 20 minutes later. She knew the Bells well. Pinewood wasn't a big town. No signs of forced entry, she said, examining the doors and windows. Her window was open, but the screen is intact. Any chance she might have wandered out on her own? Never, Melissa said firmly. She's afraid of the dark. And she was sound asleep when we checked on her at midnight. Sheriff Lewis radioed her deputies to begin searching the neighborhood. By dawn, half the town was looking for Amy. 3 days. Later, the Bells sat in their living room with Sheriff Lewis and a man in a dark suit, who introduced himself as Special Agent Greg Simmons from the FBI. Amy isn't the only child who has disappeared, Simmons explained. In the past week, 12 children between ages 5 and 10 have vanished from their bedrooms, all with the same pattern: no forced entry, no witnesses. Why didn't we hear about this on the news? Ben demanded. We've been keeping it quiet to avoid panic, Simmons said. But there's something else. He opened a folder and showed them photos of strange metallic dust found in each child's room. Our lab can't identify this material. It's not from Earth, Pronya. And Melissa looked at each other, the terrible suggestion hanging in the air. You think the Varens took our daughter? Melissa asked, her voice shaking. We don't know, Simmons admitted. When questioned, Varen officials denied any involvement. They suggested a rogue faction might be responsible and offered to help find the children. Later that night, after the FBI agent left, Ben returned to Amy's room. He knelt by her bed, fighting back tears. As he ran his hand over her pillow, his fingers touched something hard. Hidden under the pillow was a small metal object, about the size of a coin. It pulsed with a faint blue light. As Ben picked it up, it began to emit a soft beeping sound. The beeps formed a pattern, almost like it was pointing somewhere. Ben looked out the window toward the distant mountains. The beeping grew faster when he pointed the object in that direction. He pulled out his phone and called Sheriff Lewis. I think I know how to find my daughter, he said. Ben's truck bounced along the rough mountain road. Beside him sat Melissa, her eyes fixed on the small metal device now blinking faster with each mile. In the back seat, Sheriff Lewis checked her gun while Agent Simmons studied a map on his tablet. The call signal is getting stronger, Melissa said. We must be close. They had been driving for 3 hours, following the strange device deeper into the Cascade Mountains. What had started as a main road had turned into a logging path, and now barely qualified as a trail. There shouldn't be anything out here, Sheriff Lewis said. This area was designated as protected forest land decades ago. The metal device suddenly began to pulse with bright blue light. Ben stopped the truck. It's pointing that way, he said, gesturing toward a cliff face covered in pine trees. Agent Simmons frowned. There's nothing there. My daughter is there, Ben said firmly. He got out of the truck and started walking. The others followed. As they approached the cliff, Ben noticed something odd about the rocks. They seemed to shimmer slightly, like hot air rising from pavement on a summer day. "It's some kind of camouflage," Agent Simmons whispered. Melissa reached out her hand and touched what appeared to be solid rock. Her fingers passed right through it. She pulled back with a gasp. "A hologram," Agent Simmons said. "Advanced technology." Ben didn't hesitate. He walked straight through the false rock wall. The others followed and found themselves in a small cave that quickly opened into a wide tunnel. The walls were smooth metal, lit by strips of soft blue light. "This isn't human construction," Agent Simmons said. They followed the tunnel down. The air grew cooler. After about 10 minutes of walking, they reached a large metal door. It had no handle or keypad, just a smooth surface. Ben held up the metal device. The door slid open silently. Beyond the door was a view none of them had expected. A massive underground facility stretched out before them, at least the size of 3 football fields. The ceiling was high and dotted with lights that mimicked daylight. The walls were lined with what looked like glass chambers. People in white lab coats moved between stations filled with equipment none of them recognized. "Is that?" Melissa pointed to a woman working at one of the stations. "Dr. Olivia Grant," Agent Simmons said. "She's a xenobiologist who was hired by the government to study the Varens. What is she doing here?" They ducked behind some equipment as a Varen glided past. Up close, the alien was even taller than they appeared on TV, nearly 7 feet. Its movements were graceful, almost like it was floating. "We need to find Amy," Ben whispered. They moved carefully through the facility, staying hidden behind equipment and storage containers. They passed several glass chambers that held what looked like normal children's bedrooms. Some chambers were empty. Others contained sleeping children. "Look," Sheriff Lewis pointed. In one chamber, a young boy was sitting on a bed while a Varen stood nearby taking notes on a thin tablet. The boy seemed calm but confused. They continued forward until Melissa suddenly grabbed Ben's arm. "There," she whispered. In a chamber at the far end of the facility, Amy sat on a floor playing with blocks. She looked unharmed. 2 Varens observed her from outside the chamber. As they watched, Dr. Grant approached the Varens. They could just make out her words. "The subjects are prepared for the next phase of testing," she said. "The attachment responses have been cataloged. Are you ready to begin the danger scenarios?" One of the Varens nodded. "Yes. We will now test how far human parents will go to protect their offspring. Begin the fire protocol." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. A computerized voice spoke. "Warning. Fire protocol initiating. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately." Ben and Melissa looked at each other, in horror as smoke began to fill parts of the facility. In her chamber, Amy looked up in fear. Smoke filled sections of the facility as flames began to rise from controlled burn points. Ben watched in horror as fire spread between him and the chamber where Amy was trapped. "We have to get her out now," Ben shouted over the alarms. Agent Simmons grabbed his arm. "Wait, this is too organized to be an accident. Look." He pointed to where Varens were calmly taking notes, watching the humans in the facility react to the fire. Some were running for exits, but others, parents who must have tracked their children here just like Ben and Melissa, were running toward the flames, desperately trying to reach the chambers. "They're testing us," Sheriff Lewis realized. "This is their experiment." Ben didn't care. He was already moving toward the fire, his firefighter training kicking in. He analyzed the spread pattern, looking for a path to Amy. "The main corridor is blocked," he told the others. "But I know how fire moves. There's a way through on the left side. The flames haven't reached the ceiling there yet." "I'll find Dr. Grant," Agent Simmons said. "She might know how to open the chambers." Sheriff Lewis nodded. "I'll go with him. Melissa, stay with Ben." They split up. Ben led Melissa toward the fire, keeping low where the air was clearer. The heat grew intense as they approached. "I can't see a way through," Melissa said, coughing from the smoke. "Trust me," Ben replied. "This is what I do." They moved along the edge of the fire. Ben spotted two other parents crawling through the smoke nearby. He called out to them, "Stay low and follow me." The couple looked up with desperate eyes. "Our twins are in there," the man shouted back. "Paul and Carol Lopez, we've been searching for our kids for days." Together they navigated through the spreading fire. Ben pointed out the safest path, using his jacket to shield them from the worst heat. His skin burned and blistered, but he kept moving. They reached a junction where the fire was less intense. From there they could see several children's chambers, including Amy's, but a wall of flames stood between them and the chambers. "We need to find the controls," Ben said. "There must be a way to open them remotely." Carol pointed to a station across the room. "There! I think those are the controls." The control panel was surrounded by fire. Someone would have to run directly through the flames to reach it. Ben didn't hesitate. "I'll go." "Ben, no." Melissa grabbed his arm. "You'll die." "I'm trained for this," he said, "and it's Amy." Before anyone could stop him, Ben ran toward the flames. He held his breath and jumped through the firewall. His clothes began to smolder as he reached the control panel. It was alien technology, but the basic design was simple enough. He found what looked like release switches and began flipping them one by one. Around the room, the glass chambers started to open. Children looked out in confusion and fear. "Amy!" Melissa shouted, waving her arms. "Over here!" Amy saw her mother and started to run toward her, but a section of ceiling collapsed between them, sending up a wall of sparks and flame. Through the smoke, Ben saw Agent Simmons dragging Dr. Grant toward them. "The Varens locked the main exits," Simmons shouted. "They want to see what we'll do." Dr. Grant looked ashamed. "I didn't know they would take it this far. The fire was supposed to be a simulation." Ben's arms were badly burned from reaching through the flames to operate the controls. He could barely feel his hands anymore. But when he saw Amy trapped on the other side of the collapsed ceiling, nothing else mattered. "Get the other children out," he told Paul and Carol. "I'm going for Amy." "You'll never make it," Paul said. "Let me help." Ben shook his head. "Get your kids, I'll get mine." Without another word, Ben turned and ran back toward the fire, straight into the heart of the inferno. Ben charged through the flames, holding his breath against the thick smoke. His skin blistered from the heat, but he kept moving. Nothing mattered except reaching Amy. He found a path around the collapsed ceiling, ducking under a fallen beam. Through watering eyes, he spotted Amy huddled in a corner, covering her face with her small hands. "Amy!" he shouted over the roar of the fire. She looked up, her face streaked with tears and soot. "Daddy!" Ben reached her and scooped her into his arms. She clung to his neck, trembling. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." But getting out wouldn't be easy. The fire had spread quickly, blocking their return path. Ben held Amy close, shielding her with his body as he searched for another way. Meanwhile, Melissa paced anxiously with the Lopez family and the other rescued children. Sheriff Lewis approached with a group of confused-looking staff members. Most of them didn't know what the Varens were really doing, Lewis explained. They thought this was a research facility studying cultural differences. Smoke billowed from the section where Ben had disappeared. Melissa stared into the flames, praying silently. Suddenly, Agent Simmons appeared with Dr. Grant and a tall Varen. The alien's skin had changed color, darkening to a deep gray. "This is Nexus," Dr. Grant said. "He's the lead researcher, but he says he wants to help now." The Varen spoke, its words forming directly in their minds. "The fire protocol has exceeded parameters. It was not meant to cause actual danger." "Then stop it," Melissa demanded. "The system is damaged," Nexus replied. "But I can show you another exit." Inside the burning section, Ben stumbled forward with Amy in his arms. His lungs burned with each breath. Amy had stopped coughing, which worried him. He needed to get her to fresh air quickly. Ben spotted a door he hadn't noticed before. He staggered toward it, his strength fading. "Stay with me, kiddo," he wheezed. "Just a little further." The door wouldn't open. Ben kicked it, but his legs felt like lead. The smoke was getting thicker. Ben sank to his knees, still holding Amy tightly. If these were their final moments, he would protect her until the very end. Suddenly the door slid open. Nexus stood there with Melissa and Agent Simmons. "This way," the Varen said. Ben gathered his last strength and lurched forward. Hands reached out, pulling them to safety. Melissa grabbed Amy while Agent Simmons helped Ben through the door. It sealed shut behind them, cutting off the smoke and heat. In a clear corridor, medical staff provided oxygen masks. Ben refused treatment until he was sure Amy was being cared for. Her small face was covered with an oxygen mask, but her eyes were open. She reached for his hand. "You came for me," she said, her voice muffled by the mask. "Always," Ben replied, his voice raw from smoke. While the humans received medical care, Nexus watched with other Varens. They spoke among themselves in silent communication. Finally, Nexus approached Ben. "You knew the risk to yourself was high, yet you entered the fire anyway. Why?" Ben looked at the alien with exhausted eyes. "She's my daughter." "But you could die. Your species' survival does not depend on one offspring." "That's not how it works for us," Ben said. "Each child matters. Each life matters." Nexus tilted his head. "Other species we have studied abandon offspring when danger threatens. It is the logical choice for survival. Humans don't make that choice," Ben said simply. "We protect our children, no matter what." "Even at the cost of your own life?" Nexus asked. Ben looked at Amy, now sleeping with her hand still gripping his. "Yes." Nexus was silent for a long moment. "This requires further study." As medical staff prepared to move the injured humans to surface vehicles, Commander Lisa Wright burst into the corridor with a team of armed soldiers behind her. "Nobody moves," she ordered, her gun aimed at Nexus. "These aliens have a lot to answer for." The soldiers quickly surrounded the Varens. Commander Lisa Wright recognized Ben and Melissa from the photos she had studied during her investigation. "Commander Wright?" Agent Simmons stepped forward. "How did you find this place?" "I've been tracking unusual Varen movements since they first showed interest in human children," Lisa explained. "When kids started disappearing, I convinced my superiors to let me lead this team." She turned to Nexus, her expression hard. "Your people told us it was a rogue faction, but this is an official research operation, isn't it?" Nexus did not deny it. "We needed to understand." "Understand what?" Lisa demanded. "Why humans act against logical self-interest to protect their young," Nexus replied. "No other intelligent species we have encountered does this. It makes no evolutionary sense." Ben struggled to sit up, still holding Amy's hand. "You set a facility on fire with children inside to test a theory?" Lisa ordered her medical team to tend to the injured humans. "You'll all be evacuated to safety. The children will receive medical care and be reunited with their families." As they prepared to leave, alarms suddenly blared again. The lights flickered. "The fire has reached critical systems," Nexus said. "This section will soon be compromised. Everyone out now," Lisa ordered. The soldiers helped evacuate the injured humans. Ben insisted on carrying Amy himself despite his burns. They moved quickly through the corridors toward the surface. Behind them, explosions shook the facility. The damage from the fire had triggered a chain reaction in the alien technology. As they neared the exit, a massive boom echoed through the tunnels. The ceiling began to crack. "Run!" Lisa shouted. They sprinted the final distance to the cave entrance. Just as they reached it, a section of tunnel collapsed, trapping several Varens and 2 human scientists. Ben handed Amy to Melissa. "Get her out." Before anyone could stop him, Ben turned back toward the collapse. One of the trapped scientists was Dr. Grant. "What are you doing?" Lisa called after him. "I can't leave them," Ben shouted back. He disappeared into the dust and smoke. Minutes passed with no sign of him. The remaining ceiling groaned, threatening to give way completely. Just when Lisa was about to order everyone else to evacuate, Ben emerged from the dust cloud. He supported Dr. Grant, who limped beside him. Behind them came 2 Varens helping their injured companions. They barely made it outside before the entire entrance collapsed. Under the open sky, medical teams treated the injured. Amy refused to leave her father's side as doctors examined his burns and smoke inhalation. "You went back for them," Nexus said, approaching Ben's stretcher. "Even after what we did." Ben's voice was raspy from the smoke. "That's what humans do. We help each other, even those who hurt us." "Even your enemies?" Nexus asked. "They weren't my enemies. Just people in danger," Ben said. "And your friends, too." Nexus was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that looked almost like a bow. "I have lived for 300 of your years," he said. "I have studied dozens of intelligent species across many star systems, but I have never seen courage like I witnessed today." Lisa approached with Agent Simmons. "The Varen High Council has been informed of what happened here. They've recalled all research teams immediately. They wish to avoid diplomatic incidents," Nexus said. "But I will tell them what I have learned today, that there is strength in what we thought was weakness." As medics loaded Ben into a helicopter, Amy still holding his hand tightly, Nexus watched them with his large black eyes. "You run into fire," he said quietly. "Perhaps that is not madness, but something we have forgotten." Later, as the helicopter rose into the air, Amy looked out the window at the mountains below. "Daddy?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Why did you come back for me in the fire?" Ben pulled her close with his bandaged arms. "Because that's what parents do. We always come for our children, always." 3 months passed since the fire at the mountain facility. Ben's burns had mostly healed, leaving only faint scars on his arms and back. Amy was doing well with the help of counseling, though she still had nightmares sometimes. One morning, Ben received an official letter. It requested his presence at a special meeting in Washington, D.C. in 1 week. The letter was signed by Commander Lisa Wright, now appointed as Earth's official ambassador to the Varens. "They want you to speak about what happened," Melissa said when Ben showed her the letter. "Are you ready for that?" Ben looked out the window where Amy was playing in their backyard. "If it helps make sure nothing like this happens again, I'll do it." 1 week later, Ben found himself in a large round room unlike any he had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift colors slowly, and the ceiling looked like the night sky. Melissa sat beside him along with Commander Wright and Dr. Grant, who had recovered from her injuries. "This is a neutral meeting space," Lisa explained. "Created, with Varen technology but on Earth soil." 12 tall chairs formed a circle in the center of the room. In them sat beings of different shapes and sizes, representatives from various alien civilizations. Some looked almost human, while others were completely foreign in appearance. "What is this?" Ben whispered. "The Galactic Council," Lisa said. "They're holding a special tribunal about the incident, and about humanity's place in the interstellar community." A door opened and Nexus entered, accompanied by 3 other Varens. Their skin had taken on a bluish tone, which Lisa had explained was a sign of formal status among their kind. "The tribunal will now begin," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. One alien with features that reminded Ben of an owl spoke first. "We are gathered to determine if humans represent a danger to galactic stability. The events at Research Facility Earth-7 have raised concerns." Another alien, this one with 6 limbs and green skin, added, "The Varens' research methods were unacceptable by our standards. But their findings are troubling. Humans appear to make emotional rather than logical decisions. This unpredictability could be dangerous." Nexus rose from his seat. "I wish to present new information based on my observations." The council gave permission to proceed. "It is true that humans will risk their lives to save their young," Nexus said. "But what I witnessed goes beyond mere reproductive instinct. This human," he pointed to Ben, "returned to a collapsing building to save individuals who were not his offspring, who were not even of his species." Murmurs spread through the council. "We have long believed that evolutionary efficiency leads to advancement," Nexus continued. "That sentiment and self-sacrifice are primitive traits best abandoned. Yet look at us now." Nexus gestured around the room. "Many of our civilizations face declining birth rates. cultural stagnation, loss of purpose. Perhaps in our perfect efficiency, we have lost something important. The owl-like alien leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? That the human willingness to run into fire is not a weakness, Nexus said. It may be their greatest strength, and something we could learn from. The council turned to Ben. Human, the six-limbed alien said. Explain your actions that day. Why risk your life for others? Ben stood slowly. He wasn't used to speaking to important people, let alone aliens from across the galaxy. But he knew what to say. I'm just a firefighter from a small town, he began. But every human understands that some things are worth risking everything for. Our children, our neighbors, even strangers. Even those who have hurt us. He looked at each council member in turn. You ask why we run into fire. It's because we value life more than we fear death. The room fell silent for a long moment. We will consider your words, the council leader said finally. 1 year had passed since the tribunal. Life in Pinewood had returned to something close, to normal. Ben was back at work at the fire station. Amy was doing well in school, though she now had a special interest in space and aliens that her teachers found both impressive and slightly concerning. On a warm Saturday morning, Ben and Melissa sat on their porch watching Amy ride her bike up and down the street. A sleek black car pulled up in front of their house. Commander Lisa Wright stepped out wearing a formal uniform with new insignia. Ambassador Wright. Ben greeted her with a smile. Nice of you to visit. Lisa shook his hand. Just Lisa to friends, and I come with news. Inside over coffee, Lisa explained why she had come. The Galactic Council made their decision months ago, but implementation has taken time. They've approved a cultural exchange program, and they want it to start here in Pinewood. Here? Melissa asked, surprised. Why not New York or Washington? Because of Ben, Lisa said simply. Your story changed minds. The Council believes that small communities like this one represent the best of what humanity has to offer. Ben looked skeptical. What does this exchange program involve exactly? Young Varans will come to live with human families, Lisa explained. They want to learn what we consider obvious, how to care for others, how to form bonds, how to value something beyond logical self-interest. 2 weeks later, Ben stood with Melissa and Amy outside the town hall. A small crowd had gathered to witness the arrival of the first Varan exchange visitors. Mayor Joe Franklin had ordered banners and a small band, making it feel like a holiday. Quiet hum filled the air as a small Varan shuttle landed in the field behind the town hall. The door opened and Nexus emerged, followed by 5 young Varans. They were shorter than the adults with lighter-colored skin that shifted between pale blue and green. Nexus approached Ben. Thank you for agreeing to this. It is unprecedented. Amy stepped forward, studying the young Varans with open curiosity. One of them met her gaze, tilting its head slightly. This is Lyra, Nexus said. She will stay with your family. Amy smiled at the young alien. Do you want to see my bike? 3 months into the exchange program, Ben sat on the back porch watching Amy teach Lyra how to roast marshmallows over a small fire pit. The young Varan was fascinated by the concept of cooking food for enjoyment, rather than simple nutrition. I still don't understand, Lyra said, her voice a gentle whisper in their minds. Why do parents stay with their children for so many years? On my world, we are left to fend for ourselves, once we can walk. Because we love them, Ben explained, and because they need more than just food and shelter. They need to learn how to be good people. Lyra turned her large eyes to him. What does the fire mean? Amy told me you run into fire to save others. Is this true? Ben nodded. Sometimes, yes. Will you teach me this courage? Lyra asked. The question caught Ben by surprise. Before he could answer, his emergency radio crackled. A forest fire had started in the hills outside town. I have to go, he said, standing quickly. As he hurried to get his gear, he found Lyra watching him intently. Today, you will run into fire again, she stated. It's my job, Ben replied. No, Lyra said. It's who you are. All of you. As Ben drove toward the distant smoke, he thought about what Lyra had said. The Varens had come to Earth seeking to understand why humans run into fire for their children. They thought it was a weakness, a primitive trait that made no logical sense. But they were beginning to understand what humans had always known, that our greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our capacity to love, to sacrifice, to put others before ourselves. That's what makes us human. That's why we run into fire.